Hey there. So, if you've ever sat in a super quiet room, pencil in hand, staring down one of those bubble sheets, then this one's for you. We're going to pull back the curtain on standardized tests. It's something pretty much all of us have been through, but honestly, who really knows what goes into them? Okay, let's get into it.
Right? We've all taken one at some point. The SAT, a big final exam, maybe a language test. But did you ever stop and think, how in the world do they even make one of these things? I mean, these are huge, high stakes exams. And it turns out the process is way more precise and fascinating than you'd probably guess.
The whole secret, the key to everything, is right there in that one word: standardized. Seriously, this single word explains why these tests are everywhere and also why they're so controversial. It all comes down to one thing: consistency. So here's the deal. For a test to be truly standardized, everybody, and I mean everybody, has to take it under the exact same conditions. Same instructions, same amount of time, same rules for how it's scored. The goal is to strip away all the outside variables, so the only thing left to compare is how well you know the material. It's all about trying to create a totally level playing field. Okay, so now for the really cool part. How do you actually build one of these tests? You might think they just write a bunch of questions, but nope. It's this super structured, step-by-step process that's a lot more like engineering than you'd imagine. The best way to think about it is like building a ruler, a really, really precise ruler. And before you can do anything else, you have to answer the most important question. What are we trying to measure? Is it inches, centimeters? Is it your knowledge of algebra, or maybe your ability to communicate in a business setting? That one decision shapes everything that comes next. And here it is, the actual blueprint. It all starts with step one, the absolute foundation, defining the purpose and objectives. What is this test for and who is it for? From there, you get into the specifications. That's all the nitty-gritty details, like format and timing. Then comes the really intense part, creating and arranging the questions or items, and then evaluating them like crazy to make sure they're clear, fair, and actually relevant. After that, you set the scoring rules and start the process of validation, which, as you're about to see, is a job that never, ever ends. And this last step is just so important. A good standardized test isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. The people who make them are constantly running studies, digging through the data, looking for any little bias or flaw. It's this continuous cycle of checking and refining to make sure that ruler stays as accurate as it possibly can be. All right, so let's take this out of the world of theory and see how it works in practice. How does this blueprint actually get used to build some of the most famous English language tests out there? Let's take a quick look at 4 of the big ones. See, this is that very first step, determine the purpose, in action. Just look at how different their goals are. The TOEFL, that's almost entirely for getting into a university. But the TOEIC is designed specifically for communication in the workplace. And that fundamental difference in purpose changes everything. It decides which skills they test and how the whole thing is put together. It all goes right back to that blueprint. Of course, you can't talk about standardized testing without getting into the big debate that surrounds it. Because for all their scientific precision, these tests are right at the heart of a huge argument about what we should be measuring and how we should be doing it. And here's the balancing act, right here. That super careful, deliberate process of standardization, well, that's what gives us all the pros on the left: objectivity, the power to compare results across huge populations, and just sheer efficiency. But that exact same process is what leads to all the criticisms on the right. To make a test objective and comparable, you often have to limit what it can measure. That can lead to a narrow focus on just memorizing facts instead of, say, creativity. And we all know it can cause some serious test anxiety. The strengths and the weaknesses, they're really just two sides of the very same coin. So, after going behind the scenes, seeing how these things are built, and weighing the pros and cons, what's the final score? What's the big takeaway from all this? I think it boils down to this. A standardized test is a very precise, very powerful tool. It's built for a specific job, objective measurement on a massive scale. But the thing it's trying to measure, human knowledge, human ability, is just unbelievably complex and nuanced and messy. And that right there, that's the fundamental tension. And that leaves us with the biggest question of all. We know how to build the ruler. We've gotten really good at making it precise. But looking to the future, the real challenge is figuring out if we're using that ruler to measure what actually, truly matters. What do you think?